By for just a couple of moments while we get all of our other logistics sorted out here. Welcome to our follow-up webinar from the Martial Arts Management Summit. Glad you're able to make it with us today. There are two groups of people with us. Hang on here just a couple of seconds. Let me make sure I get all this. Welcome to our. I have to get that muted here. Good. Okay. If you are on the telecom, today we're broadcasting both online on our webinar service, webinar mechanism, and also on our live teleconference. So if you are on the webinar portion of our of today's presentation, the video, you'll be able to see our slides. And I'm actually going to walk through a couple of the features and functions of Atlas Martial Arts software today in answer to a few questions that we received over the weekend. But if you're on the teleconference portion, you will be, let me say it differently. If you're on the teleconference portion, you're slightly ahead of the video. You're about 20 seconds ahead of the video. So you may just kind of have to, you want to pick one or the other. You want to be either on the video or the teleconference, but likely not both. So hopefully that all makes sense. We're going to get kicked off in about 2 minutes here. So please stand by and we will be kicking off in just a couple of moments. And I'm going to get our screen share all ready to go as well. So please stand by. We're going to be getting kicked off in about 2 minutes here. I'll check my external device here. Let's see here. Bear with me. Okay, it looks like we're doing great. About 1 more minute to go here, and I'll get our last couple of pieces of logistics all straightened out. Okay. Okay. About 20 seconds to go. For today's presentation, we're going to be directly answering some of the questions that we received over the weekend as a result of the MaManagement Summit. We're also going to sort of open up for open Q&A if anybody has any specific questions or comments that they'd like to make along the way. I have a little chat area. If you look at the bottom of the page that you're watching this video on, if you look at the lower section of this webinar page, you'll see that there's a little chat box, a little post box. You're welcome to and encouraged to, in fact, ask any questions that you may have, or ask, voice any concerns that you might have, or pieces of unclarity, whatever the case might be. And I'll look at those and address them as I can during our presentation. Feel free to post anything that you like, any kind of question, any kind of an issue that you might be thinking about, something that you're not clear about, something that you want clarification or expansion on, and I'll be happy to do that. So use that chat area at the bottom of the web page to accomplish that. If you're on the teleconference portion of today's presentation, meaning you're listening by telephone, you're dialed into our conference line, and that conference line will start you off in a muted condition where you cannot, where background noise can't leak into our recording or into our conversation. So if you do have a question or comment or anything that you'd like to add to our discussion, and you're on the teleconference portion, you have to first hit *6 on your phone, and you'll then be unmuted, and you'll be able to ask or contribute what it is that you would like at that point. So looks like people are logging on now, so I'm going to sort of stall here for a couple of more moments and wait until that clicker, that number counter stops going up. Again, we're all gathered today together to sort of review what we covered at the MaManagement Summit over the weekend, and to sort of put the final touches and perhaps even an exclamation point on some of the management strategies that we were covering, and especially to answer any lingering questions that we may have or anything that's unclear. I'd like to be able to take the time to do that. So welcome to our conference. Welcome to our webinar. We're happy to have you. Let me go ahead and get our screen share started here so you can see my slides. In fact, let me do it this way. Let me show you the slide presentation here. Give me 10 more seconds. I should have this all, there it is. Share the PowerPoint. Okay, wonderful. Now you should be seeing my PowerPoint slide. I'll apologize in advance. A few people in our teleconference, our webinar about an hour ago, reported some juddering of the screen and things like that. So we may be having some local internet issues in our area. So if you do see the screen fuzz out or whatever, just please bear with me. I'll try to go slow and make sure that I leave each slide up on the video long enough for you to be able to get the full impact and the full intent of what we're discussing. So the first thing I'd like to recover, well, first let's talk about what we're going to accomplish today. Number one, we're going to make a quick review of what we covered at the event. Number two is I'm going to kind of walk you through how all the pieces fit together, how the websites work together with the application, how the application works in the management sense, how students interact with the app, how you're tracking attendance and creating reports and creating actions based on what you're seeing happening with your students. So we're going to kind of work on how it all ties together, and then we'll save time and or energy and space for open Q&A if anybody does have any questions. Again, at this stage in the game, if you have any questions about what we're accomplishing, you'll be able to post those questions on the lower part of this page. So if you scroll down where the video is playing right now, where the webinar is playing, you'll be able to post questions and or ask and or comments at the bottom of this page. So please feel free to do that at any time. I'll be refreshing over here periodically so that I get the stream of those and have the ability to address them. So quick review of sort of our main lesson. I don't know. I guess one of the most important lessons that we covered at the MA Management Summit is this idea of having a feedback mechanism in your business. This idea of measuring your performance in order to diagnose, the sickness, so to speak, in order to create a plan to move the school forward, and then prescribing and actually taking the cure, right? Actually taking action on the items that where it presents the most opportunity for improvement and for forward growth. So number one, remember our first fundamental metric. There are 7 fundamental metrics in operating a hyper-successful school. Metric number 1 is how many warm leads am I generating on a monthly basis? How many people are calling, walking in? How many people are raising their hand? They're expressing an interest in what you do. And in part, what I'm describing is I'm looking for people who have taken a step forward, people who have been impacted by something I've done or have been impacted by something in their own life, and they've figured out a way to tell me that they're interested. I'm not sure what they're interested in. I'm not sure what their problem is perhaps yet, but they've said, hey, listen, how much are lessons? Oh boy. Okay. How much are lessons? What time are classes? What style do you teach? Whatever. Some type of an inquiry, an inbound forward movement on their part. Second is how many of those warm leads, how many of those people who have expressed an interest in some way now are impacted by what we do and say, okay, show me, right? They come in for their first experience. We can debate and talk about, if you'd like to, that introductory process and how all that stuff might look and work. But the first step is just simply a measurement. How many of those people who we've impacted are now coming in to take their first experience, whatever that first experience is with you currently. Again, we can talk a lot about the introductory process if that's something that's important to you or that's something that would be of value to you. But whatever your current introductory process is, if they come in the door and they do a private lesson with one of the instructors, if they come in the door for the first time and we put them into the class with the beginners, if they come in the door and we do some other experience, right? Whatever that might be. That's your intro. That's your sort of customer orientation, new student orientation, new prospective student orientation system. The third mechanism, the third step is obviously how many of those who we do that intro with actually migrate, turn into enrollments. The ones who say, yep, I'm impacted, I'm impressed. I think what you have to offer here is valuable to me. Sign me up, right? And again, we can sort of debate about and we can discuss, the optimum enrollment strategy, what that enrollment would look like, what the program would look like, and those types of things. But the reality is, whatever that is, whatever that committed decision that you're asking them to make, we're measuring that. How many of those happen each month? How many of those people enroll each month? The fourth mechanism, the fourth measurement is that of renewals, right? And again, renewals or upgrades, depending on how your organization is set up, depending on how your lessons are structured. We're not going to really cover that much today unless it's, again, something that you think is particularly valuable. We will. But in the renewal process or in the upgrade process, this is basically a second buying decision, right? This is where the client, the member, the student has said, I enrolled in your initial program. I enrolled in your whatever, your basic program, your orientation program, whatever you call it. And I am so happy and so impressed with what you've delivered so far. I've gotten all the benefits. I've gotten the benefits that you described, or I've begun to get the benefits that you described. And I'm so interested, so excited that I want to take the next step. I want more. I want a higher level of training. I want a deeper level of training. I want a deeper experience, a broader experience, whatever the case might be. So it's a second buying decision, for lack of a better description, a second committed buying decision. Then measurement number 5 is, of all the people in the school, right, of all your actively enrolled students, what is my retention or my attrition rate? What is my keep rate or what is my quit rate, depending on how you decide that you want to measure that. And this, again, is sort of the macro. If I have 200 active students and I'm dropping out 6 students a month, then my quit rate is 3% a month, right? So I like to track that on a monthly basis, and then obviously my staff and I are painting over it on a weekly basis, right? But I'm tracking that in macro as a month goes on. And then number 6, the sixth fundamental metric is, again, our average student value. How much, if you divide your entire gross revenue divided by your student count, how much is the average student quote worth? How much are they? What is their tuition? What is the total gross revenue divided by number of students? So if I have 100 students and I'm grossing $10,000 a month, then that means the average student is worth $100 a month. The average student is contributing to the school. I think using the word worth is a bit tricky, but the average student is contributing $100 a month to the school, to the gross, to the top line revenue number. So average student value. And then number 7, the 7th fundamental metric, is this idea of student quality, this measurement of how well the students are actually learning what you're teaching, which I believe is a direct representation of how good you are at teaching it, right? So I'm a very pragmatic sort of internal locus of control type person. I think if someone isn't getting it, it's my job to figure out what I need to do to get them to get it, right? Not my job to lower standards, not my job to make it easier, my job to raise the level of the quality of our instructors, raise the level of the ability for our curriculum to be understood and to be implemented appropriately. So we have to have some measurement of student quality. So let's talk about the targets. Again, this is just a quick review. The targets that we described are incredibly important to keep our focus on. From warm lead to intro, from once they've expressed interest in what we do to them coming in for an introductory lesson, actually showing up, we should be converting about 80%, right? If 10 people raise their hand, if 10 people come in, if 10 people call, whatever the case might be, we should be good enough at handling that interaction that 8 of those 10 actually show up at our door ready to take their first lesson. And if our ratio is low, if our ratio is, below that, if it's 50, 40, 30%, then we really need to look at our process for handling those warm leads. Again, we're never going to blame the customer. We're never going to blame the market, right? We're going to look at our systems and we're going to say, okay, my warm lead to intro conversion ratio is low. Let's look at what we're doing. What are we doing to confirm their appointment? What are we doing after they've set an appointment, what are we delivering to them? How are we persuading them that this could be a great program for them, or this program has a lot of value for them? How good is our phone script for handling that first interaction? How effective is our script for handling a walk-in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So these are all critical components, critical pieces of analytics that we have to be looking at in our business. So from warm lead to intro, about an 80% conversion ratio. And then again, from intro to enrollment, about an 80% conversion ratio is our target as well. So if 10 people actually show up for their intro, our intro should be good enough. It should be impactful enough. It should be compelling enough and persuasive enough and exciting enough and be of high enough perception of value that about 8 out of 10 people, at least, about 8 out of 10 people are going to say yes. They're going to say, you know what? I'm convinced it sounds like a great program. We definitely want to take advantage of it. where do we, what do we do, right? How do we get enrolled into this thing? So 80/80. And then from enrollment to renewal or upgrade, again, depending in your school about how you have that set up, right? Depending on how you have that set up. Some schools don't have a renewal system. Some do not have an upgrade process. Some simply enroll people on, let's say, for example, a month-to-month agreement that just auto renews forever, right? Perfectly legitimate strategy. There are much more optimized strategies than that. But, there are a bunch of different models for this. But the point is, how many people make a second buying decision once they enroll with you? How good of a job do we do at delivering what we've promised that some number of those people are so happy with what we've done that they're in fact enthusiastic and excited to do more, whether it's a higher level program, whether it takes them to a higher level of rank, whether it's more or different curriculum, whether it's a different type of curriculum, for example, like a leadership development program, things like that. Whatever the case might be, this is a second buying decision. This is someone who is so happy. You've done such a great job of delivering what you promised initially that now they want more. They want to go faster. They want to go higher. They want to do better, right? So 80/80/80 are the fundamental kind of core measurements that we are always looking for. And then for a retention or attrition, depending on how you want to measure it, again, positive or negative, if you have a 10% or higher a month dropout rate, meaning if I have 100 students, if I'm dropping out 10 students a month or more, you've got some serious problems, right? That should be a crisis that screams to you at the top of its lungs. And it's an indicator to you of something going on. Usually it's an indicator of something lacking on the floor and or something lacking in our enrollment and introductory process, where we're not adequately preparing or pre-framing or framing the student appropriately. So when they finally do get into the classes, they're just underwhelmed or they're over-challenged or whatever the case might be, right? There could be lots of reasons for that. So something to think about. So anything over 10% is a crisis. Anything between 5 and 10%, 5% is kind of like okay, right? There are many schools in our industry that drop out 10, 11, 12, 13% a month, right? Especially in the fitness sector, like kickboxing and more fitnessy type feeling, Zumba type things, right? The attrition rate on those things tends to be relatively high. But you should be easily able to accomplish a 5% a month dropout rate or lower. So anything over 5% is an indicator of an issue. Anything over 10% dropping out a month is a crisis. Anything between, anything under 5% is pretty good. Now, there are some folks in our industry who have really good retention rates in the 2% range. I think I've maybe only in one case or maybe a couple of cases have seen attrition rates under 2%. Most of the times that I've seen personally, when I've seen schools that have a less than 2% a month attrition rate, their numbers are wrong. I've seen, dramatic gaps in how they're tracking the stats. So, you have to be careful of that. Students drop out. I mean, that's just, some factor of your students are going to move away. Some are going to be ill. Some are, going to be injured, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I count attrition personally based on paying their membership or coming to the school to take lessons or both or either, right? So I count them as sort of gone if they're not coming but still paying, right? Like just because they continue to pay their bill doesn't mean that I count them as an active student, right? I only count them as active if they're actually coming to the class a couple times a week, and they're also current on their billing. So I tend to track this at a more granular level than many do. But the point is, there's a threshold here somewhere, right? And you should be monitoring that very carefully, very closely each and every month, and using that to make decisions about your curriculum, decisions about how you organize your curriculum, how your curriculum is delivered, okay? So number 6 is the average student value. And again, in pretty much anywhere in the country, I mean, really anywhere, and I've worked with some schools in some really depressed areas. And I've also worked with many schools in very, very wealthy areas. Pretty much anywhere in the country, you should be grossing $150 per month per student or more. So if I have 100 students, I should be grossing at least $15,000 a month. If I have 200 students, I should be grossing at least $30,000 a month. And that's kind of like a foundational bottom, a sort of a foundational level, right? Sort of a minimum threshold where if I'm not at least grossing 150 per month per student, then there's something going on here. There's a huge area, huge opportunity for upward improvement. And again, I've seen this in very difficult rural, small towns, and of course in very upscale suburban neighborhoods as well. So 150 on up should be your target. Really, you should be around the $200 per month per student mark or higher. Many of my clients, my own locations especially, many of my own clients are eclipsing the $200 per student per month range and trending toward $300 per student per month. And I can certainly show you a bunch of strategies to help you with that. Again, this is not an attempt to try to, squeeze every last dollar that you can possibly get out of a student. But what I do think it is I think it's a good indicator of what the market believes you're worth, right? I'm a bit of a capitalist, right? I think that if someone is willing to pay a premium for something, then they perceive it's valuable. They perceive it's that valuable. In fact, in most cases, in almost all cases, the only way somebody buys something worth the only reason someone pays $1 for something is because it's worth more than $1 to them, right? The only reason, I would pay $109,000 for a car is because to me, that's a good deal, right? Maybe I feel like it's worth 130, but I'm getting a deal at 109,000. Does that make sense? So the only reason in my mind, in a capitalist, republic like we are, anybody who pays $100 believes that your program is worth more than 100, right? So anybody who pays 200 believes it's worth probably 4 or 5 or 600, right? They believe they're getting a good deal. So, again, at least $150 per month per student, just in a traditional program, not the after school type of a model. Really, you should be around 200. And now finally, the student quality metric. Again, I really can't measure this for you, as I mentioned at the event. I can't really, come to your school and say, yep, that's good quality. Nope, that's not good quality. And really nobody can, right? I mean, really, if you study one style for your entire life and go to a completely foreign style and look around at their students, you really don't have much of a sense of what good quality is, right? Now, most of us, we've been doing martial arts for, 20, 30, 40 years, whatever the case is. We have a good sense, right? But the reality is that you have to be 100% proud of every black belt that you tie on, or everyone who graduates from your program, whatever it is. In broad strokes, whatever you promise they should be, or whatever you promise they will be when they enroll, they better damn well be that, right? And in fact, they better be more than what you promised. So again, one of the tools that I've used over the years that I think is very effective, very useful, very cool, that I stole from Jeff Smith in the June Re-Institute, is this idea of the arithmetic progression concept, right? This is where we add on every cycle, right? So every year, we take our black belt requirements and we reevaluate them, and we kind of tweak them up a little bit every year, right? So every cycle that we put through our schools, we have sort of higher and higher and higher requirements, higher and higher expectations of them as we move through the program, as they move through time. So the people who get their black belt today are frankly doing a lot more, right? Learning a lot more, practicing a lot harder, in better shape than the people who earned their black belt 3 or 5 years ago, right? Just by the very nature of how we manipulate the curriculum. So I think that's something to be considerate of. But either way, you should have some measurements for how you are measuring your student quality. Hope that all makes sense. Again, any questions about this stuff, please feel free to post anything down below this video. Again, I'm looking at it right now. Any of those that pop up here, I will try to address sort of in real time. So that is that. So those are the 7 fundamental metrics. Let's take a look really quick here. Give me just a second to get this screen share turned off. Okay, I think I have that right. Okay, let me turn screen share back on to my browser. Share. Okay, cool. So I wanted to show you quickly again our sort of answer to this, right? we've created Atlas Martial Arts software in order to solve a problem. And one of the biggest problems we have as martial arts school operators that we've had in my own schools, in our own schools, in our own organizations, and in many others, is we know what we need to monitor, right? We know what we should be measuring. We know what we should be looking at, but sometimes it's hard to figure it out, right? Like we've got these attendance cards sitting over there and we got to take them off the wall and count them and then stick them all into a spreadsheet. And then we have like our accounts receivable that some billing company is handling for me or whatever the case might be. And that's kind of over there in a different bucket. And then I've got, prospects who are going into a different system over there. I'm not really sure how many of those I'm getting. And maybe they're just on a piece of paper sitting on the desk, whatever the case is, right? And again, as I described at the event, our life as a martial arts school operator is kind of like when we turn the key in the door in the morning, there are a million activities that await us, right? Pardon me while I clear my throat here a little. But so what we've accomplished with this application, what we've really strived to make easy is to know where the school is all the time. Okay. So here's the example. Every time you log into the application, every time anybody, frankly, logs into the application, provided you want them to see it, you can always switch this off if you don't want your staff to see it as an example. You're going to see immediately your trial conversion ratio. Like, for example, in this demonstration application, this trial conversion ratio is only 25%, right? So something's going on here. From my prospects month to date to my trials, only 25% of them have moved to that stage. So I got a problem here. And this thing kind of screams at me in a red light, right? Anything that's green is good. Anything that's red is bad. And there's a yellow here too. That's a warning, right? So every time I log in, I see what that is. I see what my enrollment conversion ratio is. Pardon me. I see what my upgrade conversion ratio is, provided you do upgrades. Otherwise, this will just, be 0. And I also see what my retention rate is, or my attrition rate. And again, this is actually measuring retention. So this is telling me that only 10% of my students have been in the class in the last 2 weeks. Is that a crisis or is that a crisis, right? That's a crisis. So I want to right away go to my students who haven't been here. So let's play that example out for just a moment, since I just, it just kind of popped up in my mind here. So I log into my system and I go, oh my God, my retention rate, only 10% of my students have been here in the last 2 weeks. So I look over here at my student ratings. And again, this is all fictitious data, so it's a little bit hokey, right? But you see that I have 55 regular students and 1 student that's on a trial. And of my 55 students, 47 of them are MIA, meaning they have not been to class in the last 2 weeks. 6 of them have been to class some number of times in the last 2 weeks that I've defined as a C student. And I think I've defined that as 1. So you get to set that. If you want a C student, for example, to be 1 time in 2 weeks, then that's what it is. B student might be twice in 2 weeks. An A student might be they've come 3 times in the last 2 weeks. However you want to set that up. So I immediately see that 47 of my students have not been to class in the last 2 weeks. Red lights should spin in the school. Alarms should scream. People should be irritated, right? People should be freaking out, running around. So again, in this case, I can just go right over here to my MAA students. I can click on that data item. And here's the list of my students who haven't been here, the 47 people who haven't been. And I can literally that was 1 click, send an SMS, 2 clicks. Okay, now I have them all in my list. I can send them all a text message. Hey, I missed you in class. Will I see you today? Something like that, right? So instantly in I don't know how long that took me. I don't know, 8 seconds. I can send them all a quick text message. I can send them all a quick email. I can send them, I can get my people at the school to call them quickly, whatever the case might be. The big piece of magic here is that, number one, it's telling me that it's a crisis. It's telling me that something bad is happening here. And then I have a very, very easy way to take action on that. So again, that's sort of the structure of how this thing works. The second piece of it, I think I'd like to point out to you that is important to understand, important to get your arms around, is here, this thing down below here, this is my enrollment pipeline. So this is telling me current and month to date, how many people, how many contacts, how many records are in each stage of my sales funnel. And for right now, my sales funnel is you're either a prospect, a trial, meaning an intro, someone who's in the introductory process, a sign up, meaning an enrollment, someone who's enrolled in the school, or an upgrade. You've upgraded in the school. You're an upgrade person. You're in my higher level program. So this tells me currently how many I have in each of those, and also month to date, MTD, month to date. So month to date, I've had 25 prospects that have come into the system. I have one that has turned into a trial. That's not so bueno, right? That's not too good. And 8 who are currently signed up from that, and then 5 who have upgraded this month, right? So again, this gives you a sense of exactly where you are with those phases. Now, again, we're making this very easy to take action, right? So let's say I was driving into the school today, and I decided to create a quick little video on my iPhone or on my, I personally have the Note 5, the Galaxy, the big phablet. And let's say I was driving to school today and I held my Note up and I did a little video while I was in the car. Or perhaps there was a parent who was super enthusiastic about the program, and I quickly caught them on videotape, and I quickly caught them on video and uploaded it to YouTube, whatever the case is, right? Well, that'd be a great thing to send all my prospects, wouldn't it? Right? So now I have an option. I can do either the ones just for month to date or the total. Let's do the total. Let's send them to everybody. So I have 74 current prospects. I can click that thing and it tells me what a prospect is, right? And then I can click to view the list. Now I've got all 74 of those people. I could just, again, really quickly send them an email or send them a text message. I could text message them the link to that little video that I just took. I can email them a little note. Hey, listen, one of the parents pulled me aside today and said this to me, and I thought you'd be interested. I thought this might, apply to you and your child, or whatever the case might be, right? So again, we're making it like super easy to not only know who's in what stage of your pipeline so that you can focus your energy, but also make it easy to take action on them, right? Again, like right now, today, I would have these 25 month to date people. I would print off this list real quick. I'd print this out and hand this off to my program director, and you best be calling every one of them, right? And I can sort this by creation date if I wanted to, and just print this whole list off, hand it off my program director, start working it in reverse order, right? Whatever the case might be. Does that make sense? I mean, again, any questions you have about any of this stuff, I'm going to try to be very thorough, but any questions you have about this, please feel free to post it up on the discussion forum. Or if you're on the teleconference portion of our call, you can hit *6 on your phone and you'll be unmuted long enough to be able to ask that question. So again, that's what the sales pipeline, the enrollment pipeline is all about, right? It's all about making sure you know where everybody is, who they are, and the ability to take action on them very, very quickly, okay? So enough of that. Oh, let me show you one more quick feature here that I mentioned at the event, and I got a decent number of questions about. There's a little button here called Email Me These Stats. What we've done in our entire application is I'm from a multi-school operational environment, right? I grew, my single school into an organization with, 7 locations that I had a large, the primary influence on, and then ultimately franchised the model and rolled out franchises all across the US, New Zealand, Australia. And my frame was always about and is always about systemizing things and about how I can manage multiple locations effectively. And as soon as you're in the multi-school business, you can't be 2 places at once, right? You can't be at every location at the same time. So you've got to be able to manage by systems. So this little Email Me These Stats button is a pretty cool little item. This basically, you can set up a recurring email that will come to you whenever it is that you want it, with all the statistics that we just talked about. It'll basically replicate this thing and show you what's going on in your school every day, every week, every month, whenever it is that you want. And the story that I typically tell, I think I didn't have time to tell this over the weekend, but the story that I typically tell is, my tradition, my ritual sort of for years with my wife was, every Friday night we'd go out to dinner, when I was in town. We'd go out to dinner and sit and have a nice dinner and, talk a little bit of business. She understands, she's helped me run the schools. She had helped me run the schools for years. So she understands it all and is a pretty good ear, frankly, to bounce things off of or through. And so, every Friday night, part of our time together was I would sit there at dinner and I'd have, the 7 stat sheets sitting out in front of me. And I'd be looking at the stat sheets, trying to compare them back and forth and see what's happening over here at this location and what's happening over here. And why is this one low and why is this one not low, right? Or why is this one good and this one is not so good? Point being, this little feature here, the ability for this report, and in fact, every report in our system can be set up to automatically come to you rather than you having to go into the software to get it, right? So the whole concept here is that you can manage at a distance if you want. You can have all this stuff come to you and you don't have to go seek it out. It's a huge time saver. It's a huge opportunity so that you can know what's going on with the schools even when you haven't walked through the front door, right? So that's an important thing to kind of point out. Let me walk through 2 or 3 more pieces here. And again, any questions you might have, feel free to pop it up on our forum or hit *6 on your phone. Let me show you 2 more things before we move into marketing automation. I think that's pretty important. Next, again, I want to make this easy for you to manage your students. I want to make this easy for you to manage the things and the people and the places that you need to. So for example, this is our student list. Anytime, let's say you want to send all the people in your 5 o'clock class on Thursday an email or a text message, or you want to modify them in some way. You can basically use our filters up here at the top to filter out the list that you're looking for. So for example, let's say I want all the people who are in my BJJ and my kickboxing class. Okay, there we go. So I want all my BJJ and kickboxing people. That's 11 people. And I also want the people who are in the program, I don't know, Black Belt Club. Yeah, okay, good. Well, there aren't any. Again, this is test data. So gymnastics. Nobody. Kickboxing, I don't know, whatever program it is that I want. So now I filtered my list. I've set it up however I want it. And again, I can in kind of one click, send them all a text message, send them all an email. I can adjust their team. Maybe I can assign them all to the demo team, or I can take them all off of the demo team, or I can add them to my beginners class, or whatever the case might be. So all of that is done through the student list. And these filters are really powerful, really useful to be able to go in here and filter the list exactly the way you want it and move on from there. A great example, by the way, is I can filter all my active or inactive students. So let's say I want all my inactives. Here, filter inactives. Now these are all my inactive students who are in the database. These are all great prospects for reactivation, right? So every month I might go in here, pull this list, print it off, hand it to my program director, and say, hey, listen, let's send these guys a letter. Let's send these guys a CD. Let's give these guys a buzz. Check up on them, see how they're doing, invite them in for the free seminar coming up in 2 weeks, whatever the case is, right? So again, it gives me easy access to all that information. The same thing holds true for my agreements and buyers. Remember, we have to make a distinction in our industry between, in some cases, who the student is and who the person who's responsible for making the payments is or are, right? So the agreements and buyer section basically does that. This manages the contracts or the payments or the financial information associated with that student or that agreement. And again, I can do many, many, many actions with this kind of magical blue action button. For example, if I want to upgrade this agreement or renew it, or I want to delete this agreement, or I just want to extend it, give them more time, keep the payments the same, whatever the case might be, you have the ability to do that just as granularly here, again, using our filters. So it's a very cool little widget. Now, let's move to marketing automation. So the next step is this. Now let me switch over to the other screen. Okay. The next step is this. This is the websites. This is the website sort of strategy I was talking about on Saturday. There are basically, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 steps in this sort of web kind of concept, right? And let me show you that on the screen here as well. How do I switch over to my PowerPoint? Give me just a moment. Bear with me if you could. There's a PowerPoint thing I can do here somewhere. Here it is. Okay, got it. Here. And then here. Okay, let's see if that works. I may have clicked the wrong thing. Yeah, I sure did. Give me one more chance at that. I will get you the entire, there it is. Okay. Now this is the sort of strategy, right? The super strategy for maximizing these lead generation activities, including the website. Number one, our first objective is to drive traffic. Okay. There is some traffic available online, right? There's some traffic available on Facebook. There's some traffic available on Google, people just natively Googling what we do. There's traffic available in all of these, in many online sources. But don't forget that there are all sorts of offline methods that actually work much, much, much better with much, much more impact. So again, we talked about the smart card process over the weekend. You do your community outreach activity. You do this deal at the churches and daycares and and we're then taking those people, driving them to the a lead generation mechanism, right? So we're at the Star Wars movie over the Christmas break. We're at the Christmas festival at the local church or daycare. We're at the local elementary school who has a holiday program of some type. And we've set our booth model up, right? Now remember, the mechanism, the design behind the booth model is to generate leads quickly. So we've taken all these leads. Now we want to take all of these systems, all these ways to drive traffic, the community outreach systems, the smart card systems, the pay-per-click on Google, the pay-per-click on Facebook, the promoted videos and posts on Facebook, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All these mechanisms, we're driving traffic to the website, right? Obviously, we're calling them as well. Wherever we collect phone information, of course, we're calling them. Of course, we're sending them direct mail. Of course, we're doing these other things as well. But we're using our online channel effectively now as well. So we're taking that traffic, we're moving it to our website, so to speak. Our first objective on the website is to drive an inbound call. Our chances of getting them in the school are much, 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 much better if we can get them on the phone and chat with them a little bit, find out what their needs are, make them, help them understand that we're real people, we're caring, loving, nurturing people, and that they can come in and they would have a great experience with us. Our second objective is to opt in, to get them to, again, create a lead, to take an action, to get them to put information into a web form, whatever the case might be, so that we now have their email address, we have permission to email to them, we've got the ability to sort of follow up with them over time. And then the third step is to get them to register for some type of a package, whether it's a trial lesson, whether it's a free introductory course, whatever the case is, I really don't know. Totally, it's up to you. But whatever that action mechanism is, to get them to do something. So, and then the next step, all of those leads, all that traffic, all of those pieces of data collection go into the Atlas system, where we can use our marketing automation system to apply this concept of multi-step, multimedia follow-up, right? To get them to set an appointment and to get them in for our program. So let's take a look at that. Here is that. So here's the site. Here's a site, just an example. This site operates the way you would want it to. When you land on the site, the phone number's in the top right-hand corner. Google likes to see it that way. Our title is in an H1 tag, and it's what Google would like to see, et cetera, et cetera. But immediately I'm presented with the opportunity to sort myself out by market. So instantly I see, if I'm looking for kids martial arts, I know what to do. I know to click here. If I'm looking for after-school programs, I know to click here. If I'm looking for family, if I'm looking for adults, whatever it is, I'm instantly sorted out by market. My next step is, once I've sorted myself out and I've said, yep, I'm looking for kids martial arts, my next step is I want them to land on, and kill that, a video squeeze page, a video that drives them to fill out my form. And this is totally just placeholder forms over here. By the way, I just popped them up there real quick. But the video drives some interest so that they fill out the form to find out what our web specials are, and have the opportunity to take advantage of something, perhaps at a discount, but whatever, perhaps cool, right? So they fill the form out. That data, the data that they put into this form, automatically goes into my Atlas system, right? So let's, I don't have the right user for that one. Yeah, whatever. So I fill out this form, the prospect fills out this form, the information automatically goes over into Atlas, which automatically triggers actions that I've set up or that you set up for yourself. So let's take a look at that for a moment. They've come to the website, they've opted in, or perhaps even they've requested more information, whatever the case is. Now, they're going to pop into one of these automation sequences, one of these sort of multi-step over time sequences. And here's how that looks. I can go into my marketing automation suite. I add a campaign, and this campaign is going to kick off. It's going to trigger when someone becomes a new prospect. That's what that web form is going to do. So whenever a new prospect is entered into the system, and I mean whenever, if you enter them in by the phone sheet, if you enter them in by the website, if you put them in the prospect section, however you put in a new prospect, this thing is going to trigger, right? So it's very robust. Let's say, for example, I want this to kick off. This campaign is going to be called, I don't know, new prospect kids, for the kids program, just as an example. What program do I want that to apply to? Let's say my kids taekwondo program. Click create campaign. So now I can go into that campaign and set up the steps, right? And so basically how this works is it's sort of like a Rolodex. It's kind of the view you have here. And what happens is you've got day 0, meaning immediately. Then you have day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. As you sort of flip through the Rolodex, it's like a calendar, a Rolodex calendar. You have the ability to set up these steps each day, for example. So on day 0, as soon as somebody fills out that form, I want them to get a text message. So I'm going to click add an event. I'm going to make that event a text message, an SMS message. I'm going to hit add event. Now I'm going to type my content. Hey there. Thanks for requesting the free, I don't know, report. Let's say it was a free report. I'm just going to ballpark this, by the way. Sending that to you now. In the meantime, check out this cool video. And then I put my YouTube link in here. Whatever, right? So now I'm 13 characters over. I should go back in and fix that. Let's see. You can go back in here and just kind of, tweak this up a little bit. You only have 140 characters plus the opt-out. So, you have to figure out how to kind of truncate your message a little bit. Okay, so 0 characters. Done deal. I can also personalize this. I can have this say, hey there, John. Thanks for requesting the free information, right? So, you can kind of be creative with this. You do want to be under the 140 characters though. Yeah, so I have 16 extra characters now. So I've set that up. I'm going to save it. I'm going to make this event active by clicking the activate button. I'm actually going to unclick that because I actually don't want this to go out. But I make that active. And now every time a new prospect goes into the sequence, they're going to get this text message. Pretty cool, right? Let's also send them an email. So on day 0, I want them immediately to get an email too. And the subject line is, here is your free report. Or whatever, right? Save that. And I'm going to put my message content in here. Again, I can personalize all this stuff. I can say, hey, John. Hey, John. Here's all your stuff. Save that. And now I have my email set up, right? And again, I can do this on each of these days. I can set up as many steps as you want, frankly, on day 0 all the way through day, I think like 1,000 and something, right? So at least 3 years you can go out with this thing. So that's this idea of multimedia. I'm sending them email, text messages. I'm sending them videos. I can have staff members mail them things, all of that sort of stuff. So it's really sort of compiling all of those steps, all of those pieces of communication in sort of one platform, the ability to impact them with much greater efficacy, effectiveness than we are in many cases now. Now, again, I've used every application in our industry, right? I mean, pretty much. I mean, I'm a rabid consumer of this type of stuff. And the ability to execute these types of sequential systems, the ability to execute these types of campaigns is incredibly valuable to a school. Now, the second piece of this that I would mention is we've also got campaigns built for you, right? Now, you have to stick them in here. because I want to make sure you see every step. I don't want things to go out to your students or your prospects without you knowing about it, knowing what's in it and stuff like that. But I can even provide for you much of the content that you would want to use for these sequences. And this is stuff that we've tested for years, right? So very valuable and very useful. But that's how that works. So the chain is we go and generate leads. We put them into Atlas. If we generate them offline, we put them into Atlas directly. If we generate them online, if we're generating leads online, they're automatically going into Atlas. Atlas is then using the marketing automation engine to build up the sequence and automatically communicate with those folks. Hey, give us a call here and set up an appointment. Hey, go to this webpage and request more information. Hey, here's a video I thought you might like, a parent testimonials or whatever the case might be. Does that make sense? So in essence, this is it's like hiring a staff of marketers, right? Hiring a staff of people to sit in front of a computer and send emails and text messages all day long. But you pay them zero, right? This is the cheapest staff member you're ever going to have at your disposal, right? When you divide out the cost of Atlas to hourly, right? It's nothing, right? It's like negative cents, I think, right? And then when you really think about what this thing will do for you, how much money this will generate for you, it really is probably the biggest no-brainer really of all time. So that's how all this stuff works. That's kind of how you glue these pieces together. It's very simple. Let me say it differently. It's very easy. And in fact, my team here at the office will do the bulk of this stuff for you, right? We're very good at, I'm going to stop the screen share here. They're very good at setting up these sequences, very good at getting these websites set up for you, very good at getting all the pieces to work together and eliminating any, frustration or as much as possible anyway, that you may have in the setup process. So I hope that all makes sense. I want to take a breath here. We've got a good few folks on the webinar, and let me look at the teleconference and a few on the teleconference. So I want to take a breath for any questions that you might have. Any questions that you've got, please put them in the comment section at the bottom of the little website thing at the bottom of the application. If you have anything that you wanted me to expand on, any questions that you might have, please put them there. And if not, if we've been thorough enough, that's absolutely fine. We will wrap up for the day. I would say one more thing, which is my team is here specifically handle this stuff for you, right? So if you've got any questions about the application, if you have any questions about what it can do for you in your school, if you're not exactly sure, if you're worried about, you have a current website and you're not sure how that would integrate, which is easy, by the way, we can handle most of that for you. If you're using another application or something like that, and you're not quite sure if this is going to be a good fit, my guys are here all day long to help you with that stuff, right? So give them a call, 800-275-1600. Chat with any of the guys over there. Sean Lee is in the office today. He was at the event with us over the weekend. Philip Song O is also in the office today. He was at the event with us over the weekend. They're happy to chat with you. I also have something that you may want to note. I also have always in our office several people that speak at least 3 languages. So we always have folks in the office who speak English, who speak Korean, and also who speak Spanish. We even have, we have some other languages represented as well. But the 3 most common in our niche, in our industry, we always have folks here who can handle that. So if you're not quite comfortable speaking to someone in English, we've got someone here who can help you with other languages. So I hope all that makes sense. Now, any last thoughts, any questions, comments, or concerns, or anything that you've got, please feel free to post it up on our service, and I will absolutely take the moment to address them. And if not, we will call it a day and wrap up and anything else you might need. If you do have any other questions that you don't want me to handle publicly, or if you have something that you want to discuss offline, again, give us a call here at the office, or send me an email directly. TobyMilroy@ourams.com. That's our OUR-AMS, National Management Services, AMS.com, ourams.com. And I'd be happy to handle that as well. No questions so far? Are we shy? An awful lot of people on this webinar not to ask any questions at all. But I am fine with that. If I've been thorough enough, I guess I'm happy about that. Okay. Well, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I hope it was a well invested, bit of your time. I know it certainly was mine. So again, if there's anything that we can help you with here at AMS headquarters, please give us a call at 800-275-1600. Thanks again so much. We'll speak really soon.